So my name is Tobias Knostman. I work at Liebherr in the department that is providing control systems. I specifically work for graphical design environments for embedded software. Liebherr is a company with a long history. So the company started in the 50s with purely mechanical systems, which were obviously quite simple from a control perspective. And the company has done the full evolution for control systems with PLCs, going to more complicated microcontrollers, and is now arriving in the age of what we call Industry 4.0, heavily connected systems that are compartmentalized across different ECUs. And going basically to the fully virtualized environments that allow us to interdependently develop our applications from each other. So the introduction of SCADE was a total game changer for the way that Liebherr develops embedded software for their systems, because it was the first time where there was, we introduced basically a whole new paradigm for developing our software across multiple departments, whereas before that it was kind of a segregated, each one its own kind of development style. So that made a huge cultural change in the way that software is developed at Liebherr. It allows us to go from very simple control mechanisms that we used previously in PLCs to much more complex embedded software algorithms and creating modular applications that allow to us a lot of freedom when it comes to reusability and exchangeability between departments of those software modules. So it's a game changer to us. The impact of SCADE One, that's going to be a future topic. So we are obviously right now evaluating SCADE One as a good successor to SCADE Classic. The good news to us is that not much is going to change in the foreseeable future, simply because the approach stays the same, and we love that kind of stability that we get from this evolution in the tool approach. Nevertheless, I've just talked about complexity in developing our application software, and that complexity has meant that also the graphical designs that we enjoyed in SCADE Classic have reached a certain kind of ceiling. And SCADE One allows us to go for even more complex design simply because it allows us to simplify the graphical expressions that we use to model the software. The API that SCADE One introduces is also much more capable than what SCADE Classic allows us to do, and that means that our middleware is able to do an evolution as well in terms of complexity and what we can offer to the user in terms of automation. So it's a really good step for us. Basically, the approach of having a hardware abstraction layer plus a SCADE application on top is pretty much enforced by using SCADE. That's the SCADE paradigm. So this is a given when using a SCADE-based approach. What it gives us is basically the ability to take any hardware generation that we have or a virtualized in the environment that we are going to go for in the future, and it allows us to take our core knowledge, our core IP, which is sitting in the SCADE models. It allows us to take those and transfer them to any new upcoming environment without big changes. So the real value that we provide as software algorithms to our SCADE-based control systems stays intact over multiple generations. So the impact of going from current or past approaches to future approaches is basically zero when employing this approach that SCADE mandates, which is the application plus a clearly separated hardware abstraction layer. Well, if you're asking about what impact I see, what the AI wave is going to have for an industry which is quite focused on stability and less so on innovation, because we have to provide safety critical systems to our customers, it's quite an interesting field. What we currently are interested in and what we see that SCADE One is going to be able to offer is basically the ability to generate models from high-level requirements. And as SCADE One language is quite simplified in terms of how it is built internally, it's actually also quite easy for an LLM to generate those models. And so we have huge hopes for an approach that couples AI into the model generation. We are certain that SCADE One is going to be able to deliver in the future on that topic.